Welcome back, beautiful souls. Welcome back to my ongoing read aloud series of Becoming Supernatural by Dr. Joe Dispenza. I'm not a coach, I'm not a guru. Three, two, one. Welcome back, people. Welcome back to my ongoing read aloud series of Becoming Supernatural by Dr. Joe Dispenza. I'm Brittany. Hey, your manifesting mentor. I'm not a coach. I'm not a guru. I'm a woman who walks the walk and who shares what works. Today, we're diving into part 4 of chapter 13. And this is where we explore the contrast between coherence and incoherence and how group intention can transform more than just individual lives. It can shift the energy of entire communities, and boy do we need this more than ever. So how timely is this information? You see what the divine does? In this section, Dr. Joe breaks down the energetic difference of coherence and incoherence, not just within individuals, but across groups and environments. He explains how incoherence is what happens when we live in survival mode. We all know that all too well, which is chaotic, fragmented, and emotionally unstable. But coherence, on the other hand, reflects harmony, order, elevated emotions, and the integration of the heart and the brain. He then introduces the concept of building a collective coherence field where multiple people attune their brain and heart waves through meditative states. This is what he does at his workshops when people have coherence healings. They come together after meditating, aligning their chakras or their energy centers, and then sending loving intentions and good energy to people to help them heal. So he says that they are generating measurable effects in the space around them, not just for the individual, but for the collective. And by sharing the same elevated emotional state and clear intention, as I mentioned, these groups become like tuning forks, radiating coherence outwardly. And according to Dr. Joe's research, this collective field can influence physical space and outcomes even from great distances, non locally. So you don't have to be in the same place to send good intentions to others. Let's get into it without further ado. In order for us to create some type of effect in the Earth's field, which can turn which in turn can influence another individual's field, as you might guess, we have to activate two significant centers in the human body, the heart and brain. As we learned in chapter 4, while the brain is, of course, the center of consciousness and awareness, the heart, the center of oneness, wholeness, and our connection to the unified field, has its own brain. When people regulate their internal states of care, kindness, peace, love, gratitude, thankfulness, and appreciation, as their heart becomes more coherent and balanced, they send a very strong signal to the brain, causing the brain to become more coherent and balanced. This is because the heart and the brain are in a continuous communication with each other. By the same means, once someone moves beyond the association to their body, their environment, and time, and takes their attention off matter and objects, they become no body, no one, no thing, nowhere, and in no time. And as you well understand by now, when they get beyond themselves and put their awareness on the immaterial world of energy, they connect to the unified field, the place where there's no longer separation between the anybody, anyone, anything, and anywhere in any time. This causes them to unify with the consciousness of everybody, everyone, everything, and everywhere in every time. As a consciousness, they have now entered the quantum field of energy and information, the place where consciousness and energy can influence the material world in non-local ways. The side effect of this process is that it creates more coherence in the brain and in our energy, so our biology becomes more whole. In our research, we found that when the brain becomes more coherent, it affects the autonomic nervous system and the heart. The heart, our connection to the unified field, then acts like a catalyst to amplify the process of coherence back into the brain. Because the heart sends more information to the brain than the brain sends to the heart, the more coherence you can achieve through the elevated emotions of the heart, the more the brain and heart synchronize. This synchronization produces measurable effects not only within the body, but also within the electromagnetic field surrounding the body. And the bigger the field we produce around our body, the more we can affect others in a non local way. How do we know this? because we've seen this over and over in our students' HRV measurements. And if you remember, the HRV measurements came in an earlier chapter. I want to say like chapter 4 or chapter 4. Evidence of the influence of the heart's electromagnetic field upon the field of another's heart can also be seen in the heart math study, in which 40 participants were divided into groups of 4 around 10 card tables. While the heart rhythms of all 4 participants at the table were being measured, only 3 people were trained to raise their emotions through heart math techniques. When the 3 trained participants raised their energy and sent positive feelings to the untrained participant, the person went into higher states of coherence. The authors of the study concluded that evidence of heart to heart synchronization across subjects was found, which lends credence to the possibility of heart to heart biocommunications. Key to the process of coherence is getting beyond the analytical mind. We know this because we've measured it enough times in the brain scans of our students. Their participation has also demonstrated with enough practice, coherence can be achieved in a relatively short amount of time. I can attest to this because the more I've practiced meditation over the years, as soon as I close my eyes, my body instantaneously relaxes, my breathing calms, everything just calms, and I can start to feel my energetic field around my body, swirling within my body and around my body. And I consider that to be coherence. He says, when the thinking brain is quieted, it moves into alpha and theta brainwave states. And this opens up the doorway between the consciousness and the subconscious mind. The autonomic nervous system then becomes more receptive to information. By raising our energy through the feelings of elevated emotions, we become less matter and more energy, less particle and more wave. The bigger the field we can create with these energies as energy, awareness, and consciousness, the more we can influence others in a non local way. The greater the energy you can create through the elevated emotions of the heart, the more you're going to connect to the unified field or with the unified field, which means you're going to experience more wholeness, more connection, and oneness. But you can't experience that connection when you are incoherent, which is feeling separate or living by the hormones of stress. When the chemicals released during stress arouse the brain, we feel disconnected from the unified field and we tend to make less evolved choices. Oh my God, I just flinched because something is happening in my personal world that I can see where people are making less evolved choices. We know without a doubt that the emotions of competition, fear, anger, unworthiness, guilt, and shame keep us separate from one another because they produce slower and lower frequencies than elevated emotions like love, gratitude, care, and kindness, which produce faster and higher frequencies. We also know that the faster the frequency, the more energy is present. This prompted us to ask several questions. What if we assembled a community of several hundred people in one room, had them open their hearts and generate elevated energetic states, and then asked them to send the intention for the greatest good of a select group of people gathered in the same room? What would happen if the electromagnetic field around each person's body merged with the field of the person sitting next to them? Could those elevated emotional states begin then to produce a change in energy in the room? Is it possible that everybody experiencing elevated emotions and energy could begin to create coherence within a community? This is where he goes into building a collective coherent field. Since early 2013, we partnered with our friends at the HeartMath Institute to further our research. Since we began measuring our students' physiological states, we've scanned thousands of brains and hearts, resulting in a significant amount of information. We have been overwhelmed and mystified by some of the data we've collected when common people start doing the uncommon. Over the course of this journey, in collaboration with the Heart Math, we've witnessed amazing measurements in our students. We've taken equally amazing measurements of the collective energy in the rooms where our students have gathered, measurements that show consistent daily increases in energy, using a sophisticated sensor from Russia called Sputnik, mentioned briefly in Chapter 2. Since elevated emotions related to activity of the since elevated emotions related to the activity of the autonomic nervous system produce electromagnetic fields, increasing those emotions results in changes in blood, microcirculation, perspiration, and other functions of the body. Because Sputnik is so sensitive, it can quantify environmental fluctuations by measuring barometric shifts relative to humidity, air temperature, electromagnetic fields, and more. Take a look at graphics 15A and 15B in the color insert. In this in these measurements from our workshops, you can see a trend that demonstrates an increase in the collective energy of the room. The first line is red. The first line in red is our baseline measurement and shows the room's energy before the start of the event. As you look at the red, blue, green, and finally the brown lines, each color representing a different day, you can see that each day the energy steadily increases. In graphics 15C and 15D, the same color scale applies. However, these measurements reflect specific time intervals during each day's morning meditations. This means our students are getting better at raising the energy of the room by creating more unified coherence. The Sputnik readings demonstrate that the collective energy created by our students from the first day of the workshop to the final day consistently makes incremental increases. Within that trend, we found that most groups are extremely focused and the energy rises every day. About one quarter of the time, the energy stays relatively the same for the first day or two, but in the following days, the energy increases significantly. We believe this is because during the first day or two, the group is working on overcoming themselves by breaking the energetic emotional bonds that keep them connected to their past present reality. So during this time, they are drawing from the unified field to build their own personal electromagnetic fields. This siphoning from the field tends to cause the collective energy in the room to drop. But once those individual fields become greater, more enhanced, and coherent, they entrain to one another, which is when we tend to see dramatic increases in the energy in the room. Figure 13.2 shows that when two coherent waves come together, they create a bigger wave. This is called constructive interference. The bigger the wave, the higher the amplitude of the energy. And as a result of our students' more coherent waves coming together during our workshops, the energy of the field increases. And then there's more energy to heal and to create or access greater levels of mind, which can sometimes lead to mystical experiences. Constructive interference is when two or more waves come together to create a bigger wave. Amplitude is the measurement of the height of the wave. The higher the amplitude, the higher the energy. If a community of people are all gathered and are creating coherent electromagnetic fields, when their energies interfere, it makes sense that the energy of the room will increase. My team and I have been consistently humbled by our students' profound healings, their ability to increase and regulate elevated states, and their reports of mystical experiences or acute insights into their lives as a result of learning how to regulate their brain waves, open their hearts, and go into coherence. And some of these occurrences could be labeled as miracles, but we believe it's just a part of the process of becoming supernatural. This led us to wonder if our students could affect the nervous system of others, and if so, what the implications of that would be. These questions would spark the birth of Project Coherence. And in part 5, we're going to learn all about the creation of Project Coherence, a global initiative where thousands of people came together to intentionally raise the energetic state of the planet. Dr. Jones does this in his Walk for the World meditations, which he sprinkles throughout the year. I've happily participated in about 4 or 5 of them so far. But Dr. Joe will walk us through the exact meditation that he uses to do it. And if you've ever wondered how your healing can ripple out into the world, part 5 is not, I repeat, is not to be missed. I'll see you in the next video.